Let's do a quick roll call to make sure Dick can hear everybody. Heidi, would you do a roll call, please? I'll call the meeting to order here at 6:11.
Sure. Roy?
Here.
Here. Taylor? Here.
Yeah.
Dick?
Here,
Dick? Here.
here.
Thanks. I am also here.
Okay. All right, we have 5 members present. Deborah unfortunately could not make tonight's meeting. Appreciate everybody else being available. So let's get started with the meeting. The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from 3/27, which were sent to you before the meeting. Were there any comments, any corrections?
I didn't notice them, but I asked.
I thought it was great, so I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the
3/27.
3/27 meeting.
I second.
Okay, Sheila seconds it. Any discussion? If not, roll call again, please, Heidi.
Roy?
Yes, approved.
Yes.
Dick?
Yes,
Printer.
Sheila?
Yes.
I guess I will hear.
Right. Okay. Moving on to the next item on the agenda. The update on the unspent funds from prior year's senior taxpayer tax work-off program. Susan and Dick. Susan, can you give us an update on that?
So I'm gonna let Dick describe, because mostly he communicated with Sheriff Garrity and the assessor's office to get the details. So Dick, can you just give what you talked about today? In terms
okay,
of
it's kind of confusing at points, but basically we've made the error of thinking that there is a wallet or a envelope full of money someplace set aside specifically for each item. Basically, that's incorrect. It's still all in the working budget.
Okay.
And what the allowance is, let's say the $20,000, is to spend up to $20,000 on that. It doesn't mean you got a $20,000 put off in a corner someplace, and whatever's left you have to work back in. In my understanding, that's my understanding. My other understanding is that the idea about spending money, Cheryl cannot spend money without, quote, an invoice of which to match. And I believe that is what Deb was talking about when she said she has to present the hours, etc., for allocations of the money. That's my understanding of it. I have been told over and over there is no account sitting in a corner with $60,000 in it. It just does not exist that way. That is what would have been, I guess, would have been spent. I hope that clears things up a little bit. If not, someone else can investigate, but that's what I found out.
I think that answers my question, because I think my concern was that there was money that had been allocated unspent that was somehow restricted and was kind of just accumulating year over year, and we didn't want that. Given it's gone back into the general account, that's fine. There's no restriction on that. I'm fine with that, you know, as how the town is handling it. That's exactly the way I would like them to handle it. I'm fine with that.
Exactly, and that's what we just wanted to make sure of.
Yes.
And it was, I think it was Deb's saying that the funds are in this account, or it's something that you have to trigger this and in order to get it out. And I think we all, or I, misinterpreted it as something where it's in like an envelope or in a folder, restricted. But what Dick is trying to basically say, it's in general funds that they they put into the budget line items, but it's part of this big pie. And when we said something from the treasurer needs to trigger it, it's actually triggering it to pull the money out. So the invoice or the list that they do at the end of the year that says this is how much each person worked,
Mhm.
that official document with the signatures on it from the assessor's office is the trigger to pull the money out. And then the other money that's left is just left in the general fund. So now that we know that, we can wash it clean and not
Okay,
discuss it again.
right, okay, so that was the question about the unspent funds, and it's
Yeah, it's.
fine, it's
It's
exactly the way we wanted it to have
Mhm.
been handled.
Mhm.
Now, Susan, there is another question here in terms of, for the coming year, the state is changing the amount of money that one person can earn from 1,500 to 2,000, if I understand it.
That's correct.
All right, given that, should we make a recommendation to the select board that they increase the total amount of the budget? What do we feel on this?
So Dick and I talked about that this afternoon also, and where initially he thought, well, let's request 25 just to compensate, so we would still have the same number of 13 people that could max it out at 2,000 each. His thought is because that won't go into effect until October of next year. So what happens is we're already, I think it goes from October first, or November to November. It's not the same as our fiscal calendar. The tax write-off or work-off is a different schedule. So when that money is approved, in other words, it takes the select board to just say it, but they also then need the finance to put it into the budget. So his thought was, and correct me, Dick, if I'm speaking out of turn, but you know, that because by the time that goes into next year's fiscal, it will be the fiscal year that the town has no money. So, like we have enough next year because we pulled those funds from the general fund that we got, you know, we're in flux of, you know, that we voted at the warrant, to move into our fund, and that will be used towards the high school. The year that this would go into effect, if we ask for it, would be the year that they don't have that money anymore, and we're gonna need every nickel and every dollar.
That is the year that I'm worried about, fiscal 26. Because although we set $1 million aside for that, it looks as though we're gonna owe 2.5 million. So that means we're $1.5 million short already. My suggestion is that we approve our budget in an amount that will be sufficient for at least 3/4 of the year, and then call a special town meeting or something if we need more money. I don't want to go into
Reserving
we
it.
know what happened when we put 1.2 override on. What would happen if we had to put 1.5 override on just to pay for the school bill? So I'm not anxious to add any dollars here until it becomes a need, a definite need, and a need for a special town meeting with several warrants on it. I don't know if you know, but if you come to our finance meeting on the 30th, revenues this year for right now, 24, are down. And the reason they're down is nobody's buying new cars, so excise tax is down. People aren't eating out as much, so meal tax is down. We're already short on income for this year. We may make it up, but we've already approved 2025. We got to look real hard at what's going to happen from 2024, which might affect what we approved in 2025, let alone what we can afford to spend in 2026. I just want to be careful. Now, you can make a recommendation. It's a question of whether it's acted upon, that's all. but it's
Mhm.
up to you whether you want to make the recommendation. I don't want to stop you from doing that.
Yeah, I guess the question in my mind is, what's the right thing for us to do? Should we raise this to the select board? You know, should we just say, we recommend that they consider this? Should we recommend that they approve it? Should we say
Right.
nothing?
Because right now, if it's status quo, we're not using all the 20,000 anyway. You know,
Yeah, that's how it's been.
and that's where it's been like the last
Nowhere
4 years
near.
or so.
Nowhere near.
So in reality, even though it would bump up, you
Yeah.
know, maybe the same 10 people
Mhm.
would apply. Now, do we want to promote the program? Do we want to ask, you know, like, did more people sign up as a result of the seminar that they had?
I
You
think
know,
there was.
You know, that people
You know,
were.
it's well attended, yeah.
It was well attended and, you know, were there more people? So I really haven't checked with the assessor's office. Does that create a boost? Somebody else can something, I just saw it, okay. So, you know, I don't know whether there's gonna be more people. I mean, I'd like to just bump it to 25, just to say, well, that would keep it status quo going from 1,500 to 2,000. We can make that recommendation. It's up to finance whether they wanna do it or not. So I mean, I'm for it because I think it makes sense. If we promote it, if our group is here to help seniors, and this is a way we can help seniors, I look at that as, well, at least it would keep the 13 people, you know, in that, with the $2,000, you know, change. So
Yeah,
it's up to you.
my feeling is, I think we have some responsibility to promote seniors and things that benefit them. I would promote this as giving visibility to it.
Mhm.
It's up to the select board to decide with input from FinCom, you know, that kind of thing, but I wouldn't want it to be missed,
Correct.
all right? So I guess I would move that we recommend to the select board that because the state has increased the payment per person to $2,000, that the funding be increased, the funding for the tax workout program be increased to 25,000.
Yeah.
In order
Well, you
to
might as well
allow.
make it 26 if you're gonna have 2,000 per.
Right, okay, yeah, my mind had a little problem with the math too.
Yeah.
Okay, to 26,000.
And it's up to finance, you know, and the board, and again, it won't apply until the next year's budget, because again, this year's budget's already approved. So it's like another, you know, year and a half almost, and what he said, you know, we can always put it on the town warrant, you know, to get the funds if they say no, so it's just what we recommend, right?
Yeah,
You know, we're
and
gonna
I
say,
think we're giving visibility to it.
Yeah,
Because I would hate to have it get missed,
right,
you know?
that's all,
So is there a second to the motion?
I said,
Okay.
yeah.
Susan seconded the
Yeah.
motion. Any discussion?
No, you gave a good reason right there.
Okay, so roll call vote then?
Roy,
Yes.
Sheila,
Yes.
Susan.
Yes.
Dick,
I'm going to abstain because I've already spoken my piece, so I'll abstain.
And Heidi?
yes.
Okay, then we need 4 votes to pass the motions. Okay. All right, so that got approved. All right, fine. All right, moving right along, the next issue is a brief update on tax deferral. I just want to show you some things. Hang on a second, let me get. I'm gonna share my desktop. I just have to find it. I'm sorry, I just can't find the one I'm looking for.
I've seen it, other person.
My drink of choice.
It's good. Yeah, I never drank anything. Until about maybe 6 years ago, but COVID because I have like 10 fucking million, you know, it's like I would do that. And then
In the summer too.
yeah.
Not so much in the.
I'm just having a problem finding the right Word document. I've got so many open that it's not it.
That's like no, it's barely. He's dead.
No, that's not it. Well, I'm unable to put my hand on it right now, so let me just give you the quick summary.
Okay,
You may remember at the last meeting we had, I gave you a quick summary of the tax deferral program and the reverse mortgage program, as well as funding taxes from an allocation from investments, where the investment income could be that.
Yep.
The only two things I did to that to change it was, based on your comments, I put in a brief section at the top which says eligibility. Because not all of those is eligible for.
Right.
And your comments, I thought was a good point, so I put that in there. And then I improved wording slightly. I don't think, it didn't change the essence of it, it just was a little bit better way of saying it. So with that, if you're comfortable with that, I will use that when we go to the select board. It's minor tweaks. I will send you a copy, but I'm sorry, I can't put my hand on it right now. Okay.
do we need to run?
Do we think we need to vote on it? It's minor updates. Is people comfortable with it, or do you want to vote to say?
I'm fine.
Okay, all right. So it was agreed that we'll just do that. Okay. Now, the next thing I want to just mention to you, let me get this one up. And a second here. Wow, this is just. Wow, I'm having trouble just finding the document I want.
It's the way, it's because you're looking for it right now.
It's something like that, yes.
I have the same problem with it. It's just, like them later and you're like, oh, it's really nice.
Agenda 521. I just don't see it. I think I found it.
So I just.
Okay, Vic, can you see my desktop over here where the,
It's awfully small, but I can see it.
okay, for some reason. Okay. You want it larger?
Yeah.
Yes, please. All right, now my old eyes see that.
Okay. All right, good enough, or one more, how's that?
There you go. Wow.
Let's see the bit. Yeah,
Hey,
okay.
Now this isn't the document I want. Shoot, why are we not? This is not the document that I want. I don't know why I'm having so many problems just getting the right document up. Okay, now I think I got the right document finally. Hang on 1 second.
Is there something in the middle that you can delete, that where your cursor is? Because you're opening it, look on the screen, you've got this big gap there.
Yeah, I put that in there for space. Okay, we'll get past that in a minute. Okay. So I wanted to give the committee a brief update based on the election results. First of all, I just want to make it very clear to everybody that I personally am very committed to the work of the Tax Fairness Committee that we have all done. I went into this 10 months ago, whatever, fully committed to it. I hadn't decided whether or not I was going to run for Finance Committee. That was a much farther out consideration. I am personally committed to it. I would want to do everything I can to continue the work of the Tax Fairness Committee. Long term, I felt that I could help Lancaster more by being on the Finance Committee. And so therefore I chose to run for the Finance Committee. Good news, it was a long day, but I was elected. Wow. I can't tell you the range of emotions of that day. I mean, so now the issue is that I want to make you all aware of some implications from this, because there is a special clause in the town bylaws, which I discussed with Dick months ago when I discovered it. And of course, Dick Trussell, having memorized our whole bylaws, knew it by heart and knew why it was created and even adjusted it, as I understand. But there is a special clause which says any member of the Finance Committee who shall be appointed or elected to any official body, other committee, for example, shall forthwith, upon that member's qualification in such an office, cease to be a member of the Finance Committee. This provision shall not apply to the appointment of Finance Committee member to serve as a member of any ad hoc committee, et cetera, for which the Finance Committee shall serve as an ex officio capacity, like Dick serves here. Dick has been appointed because he is a member of the Finance Committee to work with tax fairness. It's not the other way around. He was not appointed to tax fairness first and then some, he serves here because he is on FinCom. So that
Same
works for
with Deb as assessor.
Same with Deb as assessor, right? Okay. So a couple of things here. One, Dick and I have been discussing this for a while since I discovered it, and okay. Two, Susan and I have been discussing it also for a while, maybe not as long, but Susan and I have been discussing this. What this means is, given the results of the election, I cannot continue to be on TFC as a at-large member. That is the role I'm in right now. I have to step down from that before I get sworn in as a member of the Finance Committee. I had to have some special conversations, and I'm actually, just because I'm elected, I'm not yet on the Finance Committee until I get sworn in to the Finance Committee, and I've delayed that so that I don't have this conflict. I'm going to have to take care of that within the next week and get sworn in, which means I will have to resign from the Tax Fairness Committee. But I want you to know that I would very much want to continue with the Tax Fairness Committee and work that we would do. Dick and I have talked, and it is possible it would have to be a decision of the Finance Committee. It's possible I could be the Finance Committee rep.
Oh, it is definite you will be, because I'm going to resign. And there can only be one member from the Finance Committee.
Right.
So it will be you.
Okay. Dick has a way of just making things happen. So, I would think that I can continue to be on the Tax Fairness Committee. Exactly any other role I could hold, like could I be, vice chair or chair or something like that. There's one or two questions about that will work out. But I want you to know I'm fully committed. I wanted you to be aware of this. I didn't bring it up before this point because given the uncertainties around the election, there was no point
Yeah.
involving everyone in it, you know, I mean. Right,
I had to win first, so.
yeah, right, I had to win, otherwise it wasn't
Relevant.
worth the time of having a discussion.
Okay,
Okay, so I just want you to be aware of it, as we've always done, I've made you aware of things that have an impact on you, would not let you not to know. Okay, so that's the point there. We will talk here at the end of the meeting relative to whether or not we want to, when I resign, let Susan assume the chair's roles as vice chair, or if we want to hold an election and elect a permanent chair. We'll have that discussion. It's on the agenda. All right, so we'll defer that until we get to that point in time. Any
There is
questions?
no reason, there is no reason why you can't continue as chair. Only your status will be, of representation will be different. It doesn't affect anything on the, really on the fairness committee. Now, if Susan wants to do it, that's fine, but, I don't want you to think that you cannot be chairman of the, fairness committee.
And I would hope, if the committee wanted me to, that I could. I've enjoyed this work and I've enjoyed working with the group. Okay, and I hear you, Dick, and I'm leaning more and more toward your interpretation of it. I
as
will.
long as it's okay, then I certainly have no, I don't know how you guys feel about voting a different person, but I mean, I'm certainly okay with keeping you as chair as long as it's not breaking any rules. My concern is that when Dick, transfers that as the representation for finance, we lose another member of our committee, which would mean that literally there's 5 of us now instead of the 7 that we started with. We either add somebody else or whatever we're gonna decide going forward, but we would have enough still to be able to vote, because you need 4 out of
Yes.
5, and if Deb's not here today, that's fine, but then she could be at the, next meeting or 2, and we'd have enough to continue to finish our work, so I'm fine with that. If you guys-
So,
Well,
yeah,
that's wonderful. So there's no way it's allowed that 2 members of the finance committee can be members of the fairness committee.
Right.
Only
Yeah,
one is
correct.
allowed.
Absolutely.
So the sad part is, I feel badly that I will leave, because this is a great group working real hard. But someone has to leave, and boy, I'm the one that ought to leave, because after what Roy's done, and so. Roy, I know the number of people who have volunteered to be members on my committee, who have volunteered to be members. You will be the representative. So let us think in terms of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
What also said is that there is nothing that says that the vice chair can't open the meeting and turn it over to a member to run. I mean, there are so many ways you can continue as
Sure.
head of the thing. However, no one has worked harder than Susan either. So if she wants it, I would be thrilled with that too.
she's shaking her head if you can't see her. Yeah, okay. All right, let's kind of put that discussion to the end of the meeting, all right? And then we'll finalize what we're gonna do there.
Okay.
Okay, and I appreciate the discussions I've had with both Dick and you, Susan, on this.
Well, as a backup,
Yeah,
if
because-
if he couldn't be chair, then I was willing, because I don't want it to be in disarray, unless somebody else wanted it. So anyway, we'll just continue.
Right, and I appreciate people's flexibility and their willingness to serve and things like that. I felt we've had a very good group. I've enjoyed the interaction and the people and the
Yeah,
discussions we've had.
exactly.
I
That's nice.
really enjoyed the group. Okay, all right, so that's that issue then. That was just information for everybody, but I wanted you to know and understand,
Yep.
okay? All right, now what I want to talk about is kind of next steps for the Tax Fairness Committee. And relative to that, I put together a PowerPoint with some information I want to share. All right, we'll cover that, and then we will talk about the issue of quote tax fairness, our taxes in Lancaster fair. All right, and what's our assessment on that? How would we go about assessing that? what should we do? What are our next steps? All those kinds of things. This is a discussion we started a couple months ago. And then we couldn't do it at the last meeting because it just got too late. So I'm, following up on that. So let's talk about, this PowerPoint presentation I want to share with you. Stop share. Let me get to. Okay, Dick, can you see my desktop there?
Yes, I can.
Okay, large enough font or let me,
No, that's good. I think if we can see it, he can see it. He was at the same level we were.
okay. The next slide may be a little bit smaller, so I'm going to bump it up. Okay. First thing I want to share with you is I want to share with you a paraphrase of some quotes that I read recently about taxes. Okay, about real estate taxes particularly. The first quote is several people made basically the same quote. Well, basically they said they cannot afford to pay any more in taxes. This is just reached a breaking point for them. Another person said, why are we doing a Proposition 2.5 override? Well, actually a whole bunch of people, a group, basically said, we're going to reject the school budget because it's too large, it's too big. We're not approving this. Go back and redo the budget, school committee. And then there was another person who said, a senior claims that over the last couple of years, his annual property taxes have soared from $895 a year to almost $8,000 a year.
That doesn't make sense.
An increase of about 790%, which he
There's
says
no
is
way
like,
that can be correct. No way.
No,
Well,
not the last couple of years.
I think
Well,
he's saying 895 per quarter, probably.
Dick, I'll send you the article, complete article.
I'm not claiming you misquoted. I'm just don't think he can possibly. I mean,
Well,
the last couple of years, I know it hasn't gone that much because I've been part of the tax into it.
Yeah, right.
If you wanted to do 30 years worth, yeah, it probably happened.
Right. And Dick, when you see the article, I agree with you. The phrase last couple of years is probably a euphemism. The individual's probably quoting 20 to 30 years. Okay.
What's the point?
Well, yeah, let me get to the point
Let's
here.
go, and otherwise we're gonna be here till.
Right, we don't want to do that. Okay, all right. He says it's like almost like paying $700 a month rent to the state to live in your own house. Now, the point I want to make from these is that similar comments could have been made here in Lancaster. And if you read these out of context, you might say, oh yeah, I've heard that comment or similar comments, all right?
Mm-hmm.
The point is that none of these came from Lancaster. All of these were either in the item on this last Friday. They were from Berlin, okay? They were from West Boston, who was going to raise the Proposition 2.5 or $4 million.
Let's,
Okay, all right, fine. All right,
we don't need to rehash every possible, let's just, what's your point
okay.
for what we're doing?
All right, the point is going to be, all right, and the last one, Dick, is from Montana. All right, the point is that while all these could have come from Lancaster, they didn't. They came from other places, and they indicate that the problem of property taxes going up, continue to go up, is it's larger than Lancaster. It's not just a Lancaster only problem. It is larger than Massachusetts, and it's a national issue. I didn't bother to look at international kinds of things. It's not unique to Lancaster. Okay? Given that the problem exists in other Massachusetts towns and states, it's probably more generic and probably more related to the way the US funds local expenses, schools, public safety, et cetera, and the K through 12 educational costs, which are 80% personnel, which are driven by inflation. Oh, and it's inflation too that's driving a lot of this. I'll make this very brief. People talk about not being able to afford the expenses for their house. basically, rule of thumb is expenses for your living expenses, your housing expenses. That is mortgage, that is taxes, that is insurance, that is repairs, all this kind of stuff. Should not be more than 30% of your income. If they are more than 30% of your income, you've gotten to the point where you can't afford that housing. You need to think about something else. And I think that's a message to bring across, because as people go from a large family with a significant income to a retired couple to a retired single person to much less income, when you get to that 30% level, you need to start thinking about a different approach and a different place to live. All right, let's talk about what taxes have done here. This chart is difficult to read. I don't expect you to read all of it. All right. Basically, these are the taxes paid on the average home in 9 of the surrounding towns around us. I had to drop Harvard out because some of the data wasn't in there for that. But basically, over 5 years, all of the taxes in each one of these towns has gone up. It's gone up significantly, on the order of 20% in round numbers. And the important thing to note is it's gone up relative to, with pretty much tracking with inflation, which you see when you look at this chart. This is sorting the increases in the different towns based on inflation. 4 of the towns are tracking in the 80% range of tracking with inflation. So they're 80, as inflation's gone up 10%, they've gone up 8%, et cetera. Okay. Then there are 3 towns, Shirley, Leominster, and Lancaster. All right, we've gone up anywhere between 98 and 105% of the inflationary increase. That's tracking really close over 5 years. And given this includes our Proposition 2.5 override, it's really close to we're tracking inflation. We're not wildly out of keeping with inflation. And then there are 3 towns, Clinton, Stowe, and Berlin, where the increase is closer to 20% higher than inflation has been over these past 5 years. So what you see is that Lancaster, well, yes, everybody's taxes have gone up. Lancaster's taxes have gone up about in the middle of the pack. Lancaster's taxes are not wildly out of range. They are tracking with inflation, which is probably the metric we want to use. And you would expect, because inflation it impacts what we have to buy and what we have to pay for people, and it impacts the education costs, because education costs are 80% personnel related, and you need to pay people, otherwise, if they can't keep up with inflation, it doesn't work for them. So all that gets driven by inflation. All right, last couple of slides. All right, so that's just summary of that. Residential taxes are increasing each year. They're tracking inflation. I believe that all these costs are due primarily to inflation. Education costs, which is also driven by inflation. There's a slight issue with the fact that commercial and industrial property, the assessed value has gone down. So it's transferring some tax load to residential property. We won't go into that a whole lot here, okay? So what's the bottom line? The bottom line is, okay, given that data, now the question is, do we think that taxes in Lancaster are fairly or unfairly assessed? What are our thoughts and comments on that? What do we think we should do? I open up the topic for discussion.
I don't think they're unfairly
Can you
assessed.
speak up a little bit, Sheila, so Dick can?
I don't think they're unfairly assessed according to the charts that I just saw.
Mhm.
And since we don't have much of a business base, it's gonna go on to the taxpayer. I just don't see how it could be different unless we had more commercial. Which residents,
Commercial and like 55 plus housing, basically, like that contributes more to the.
that would be.
No, it would, I mean, honestly, looking at housing is a lot, like around here, trying to buy, there's that empty house down.
I'm sorry, can you speak up a little bit? Okay.
The housing is ridiculous. Well, those are really the two things, is adding businesses and having 55 plus housing that adds to the tax base without adding to the expense of the schools.
Mhm. Okay. Anyone, okay. Dealing with the question of tax fairness, does anyone feel that our taxes are unfairly assessed, that houses in Lancaster are unfairly assessed in a systematic way or in a general way? Like, there's 25% of the whole, I don't know, South Lancaster area is over assessed or something like that. Does anyone feel that?
I don't
anything
feel
like
it. I don't have, a lot of personal knowledge there, but I don't feel it.
I don't even think it's possible based on them using state mandated software and processes. It's not even possible that it could be unfairly assessed. We might not like the numbers, but that's a different. Correct. issue.
Right, and, okay, any other comments, Susan? Okay,
Exactly.
and that's part of what I'm trying to draw out to get on the record here. Because my observation too, I think, like you, listening to Deb, the state regulates the assessment process so strongly. It would be hard to do something systemically wrong in terms of the assessments. Could there be an error? As Deb has taught, sometimes there are changes in a house or the committee doesn't
That's
know.
up to the individual.
And the individual can bring that up as an appeal process. There's an appeal process.
Okay.
I have no,
So what does that mean? So now what's the next step?
right, I think that's the question. We don't feel, okay, so bottom line, the committee does not feel that the homes are unfairly assessed in terms of value and their percentage of taxes. But everyone, I'm seeing a nodding of heads by everyone. Dick, are you there on that one or not? Dick? Sorry.
He's there and he's not muted. He might have gotten up to go get a cup of coffee or
I
something.
think I'm seeing something. Oh, no, that's,
He's not muted, so he probably stepped away from that. But anyway, so the next step is what?
the next
To
step,
just write a report and
well,
make some
That's,
suggestions.
that's my headset again.
oh, sorry, okay.
Now-
So Dick, the question to you was, because everyone else has provided their thoughts indicating twofold. One is that they don't feel taxes are unfairly assessed on homes. And two, they think given the amount of state regulation on the process, it would be hard to do that. And three, there is an appeal process if there is a particular issue that got missed or was incorrect by the assessor's office. So small, low frequency errors can be taken care of. Dick, your thoughts on that? Are you in agreement with that or?
I agree with it.
Okay,
Are you hearing me?
yes, okay.
Okay.
All
I
right.
mean, my question is, what more can we do until the state comes out with whatever the governor's plan is?
Right,
I don't
right.
see anything.
Okay,
I agree.
all right. I will just make one comment so that we look a little bit at the other side. And I agree with your assessments. I think we're all in the same space on that. The one thing I notice is that there is, I'll use the word tension between taxpayers and the taxing authorities in town. Okay, mainly the people who develop the budgets, okay? The people who assess the homes, et cetera. And because the taxes are going up every year. And there's tension there. I'm wondering, and a thought is that while I don't think we would have a material impact on the assessed values of houses or anything like that, that the Tax Fairness Committee could do a beneficial thing for the town by providing some forums to communicate about how our budgets are developed, who approves them, what the town's role is in that in terms of town meetings and these kinds of things, how taxes are assessed, what you as a homeowner can do if you feel the assessment is wrong, the fact that you need to apply in January, because that's the 30-day period you have to apply this.
Mhm.
And to listen to people in terms of what their questions and issues are. I think the Tax Fairness Committee could do some things to open communication. I think that would be a beneficial thing to do, and that would be done by organizing some stuff, having a couple town forums, maybe doing a survey to find out what the issues are, having the people who organize this stuff, the town administrator, the assessor's office, et cetera, do some presentations, dealing with questions and providing good answers and information back. That is something we could do. All right, it would take work and it would take a while. It's not something that's a 2-month, 3-month process. So that's on the side of, we could continue to do this kind of work and it would help reduce tensions in town. It would not change assessed values in any way. So I think that's one thing we could do. There are other things we could do in terms of, Susan, do you want to comment there in terms of?
I don't think it's our place. Yeah, we could do it, but finance could do it too. The town could do it. I mean, there could have been seminars prior to this, on the tax work off, that they could do that every 6 months and, more than just this one time. So I think it's the town's responsibility and not the tax fairness group. So, we had a certain task. I think we've kind of I felt like we meandered and kind of really tried to make it this big, and I don't think it needs to be. I think that, we sort of had this certain mission and, I think we fulfilled that. I think the biggest thing is just creating awareness about the circuit breaker and getting that discount. And, tax work off is another one. I mean, there's lots of things we could do. We could make a recommendation to start a committee to use the $8,000 or $9,000 that we have in that fund that's on the back of people's taxes. We didn't even talk about that.
Right.
But we can make a recommendation. I don't want to be the committee. I don't want to create the committee. That's up to the select board and the town. So they can just as easily with a swoop of, a select board meeting, just like they created last night, the charter committee. In 1 second, they were able to create a charter committee.
Okay.
So they could just as easily, it already exists actually on the books, but they could make it, on the website to where they gather the folks to make a committee to do something with that $8,000 or $9,000.
Mhm.
And that would be a relief fund for helping with some seniors or abolish it. But I don't think that's our role. All we can do is I feel we're at the stage where we write the report about the things we found, make recommendations, and then let the select board and finance and other departments that already are in charge of those things, like assessors, could present their own meetings, but they're only 1.5 or 2 people. That's a lot of work to talk to the town and create these webinars or seminars or whatever, but people don't show up for it. They don't even show up for town meeting.
Right.
So that was one of the things Jason talked about. I'm sorry? Right, so.
Of human nature.
And so, so I don't know that we could do it, but I don't wanna do it. And I feel like that's yes, there's discord between the town, but that's why they tried to have so many seminars about the override, to educate people, to let them know why they're doing it, what the budget is. And that's what they will continue to do. But it's not our job to educate about assessor's office and all of that. I think that, the committee dissolves, we write the report, that would be my recommendation. And, you know, we just make our suggestions about what we would want the committee, I mean, what we want the select board or the town, other departments to do. Because I think now that Dick is doing a great job in finance, and that there is more visibility for people to see how things are done, that's where the rubber hits the road. I mean, the reason we had to do the override is because there's no money. And so it's not our job to be the committee for North Lancaster to, like, you know, create a committee to get people in town. I mean, that's a whole separate committee. We're not generating revenue. The bottom line is the taxes are the way they are because we don't have other forms of revenue. So, but that isn't our job. You know, and it's great that you've done all this work and compared these other towns and made this information and
That's what we
hand that
were
over.
supposed to do.
You know, that could,
Research.
right,
Towns
right. I
can
mean,
do it.
that could be great to give to Kate and say when she's making her presentation, saying, you know, we're in the middle. You know, our taxes are not going up that much more. But she can do that. She can give those numbers and, you know, it's great you do the work, but you know, turn it over to her and let select board, you know, have a presentation that would talk, you know, educating the public or the people about where we are and why. But it's not rocket science. We have no money coming in, just like what Dick said. I mean, here, nobody's buying a new car, nobody's going out to eat, so we're not getting that revenue. And right, we don't even have restaurants, you know.
Yeah, we just don't
and
have.
Michael's and
Kimball's, Michael's,
Michael's,
what's the other one up the road?
Sandy's.
Sandy's, right.
You know, I mean,
That's it,
the
right?
only- Right, I mean, there's not much else.
Is the bridge down here?
Bridge is in Lancaster, because I
In
thought the
Lancaster.
line is
Michael's.
going under the
The other side of the bridge.
it's actually on the other side, but anyway.
Right.
So I don't think it's our job to promote and educate the public, so I would not recommend that we go that direction.
But we could recommend that there's something that happens. I mean, I think more
Transparency.
more transparency and easier to find information.
Yeah, that could be, right. And ask that our final report get put on the tax fairness page, just like, you know, our government study report never even got posted on our page. So, you know, it would be nice if our final report, once we submit it to select board, would be there, like, for transparency, so people could look at the recommendations.
The problem is that
Speak up a little bit, Eddie.
the problem is that people have to even know to look and where to look. And I personally find it absolutely horrendous to find any information on our website. And I do look.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah, like last night, they said, well, how do you get on the mailing list? And you asked me that same question, and they're like, oh, you go to this box in the top. And you would ask the question, and then you look at the drop down, and then, you know, and I was like, that's way too complicated, but they're like, oh, this is how you find it, and I'm like, okay, that's, you know, that's not working for anyone else, anybody. You know, so.
Yeah.
it should just be easier to figure.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of the things that we're, at town meeting, people are talking about, no one volunteers, and I said, well, how do you even know? And then Clark, is like, oh, you have to go and look at it here, I'm like,
It's not intuitive.
I'm not gonna do that. If somebody tells me that you need help and it's something where I feel like I could be helpful, then I would do it, but I'm not gonna go try to dig 5 levels deep on the website to see which committee might need some help somewhere.
And for the longest time, it really wasn't updated. I can tell you, because I printed them out and said at different times, it's not accurate, not updated. So that is something that needs, you know, transparency needs to happen. So, you know, but that's not our, you know, that's again, not our.
Only recommend that
Recommend.
that would make it easier. I'm not gonna tell you that people are gonna actually go look, like they might not go to a seminar,
Right.
but you know, if anything is done, it should be reported and available.
Right.
Like, find it.
Yeah, no, right. But anyway, I just would, you know, so I, you know, is this the point where I, you know, make my proposal that says, I think we write the final report, or what's the?
I want to hear any input from Sheila and Dick, and then
Sure.
I think we're to that point, you know.
I agree.
Okay,
I agree. It's, you know,
Nothing
I,
wrong with it.
yeah, I can't give a seminar on what the assessors do or whatever. I can't do this stuff.
you need to assess it.
Yeah.
Okay, Dick, any other comments here on this discussion before we get to a motion, and then we'll finalize the discussion?
But if you can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I have a report that shows that the cost per student for school is also middle ground, $14,190 versus ours is $14,400. I think I ought to give that to you so that you can include that in, because people often say the school is what's causing our problems.
Okay, that's a good point, Dick. Yeah. Right.
That's for your final report.
Yes, right. Do send that to me, I'll include it, because I think as part of having these discussions and a part of the research, I've learned a whole bunch of stuff, and I think we've uncovered, particularly with the findings we had from our first presentation, I thought we did solid work understanding and assessing what the problem was and what were real solutions, and things that were kind of not going to solve the problem. You know, just throwing money at it is not going to solve the problem. Okay.
So Dick, are you at the point where you would recommend that we just write the report, or should I make a motion to, or do you have any other comments related to that?
We should. I'd like to get this.
But my point on this is that a committee that does not meet falls apart and gets stagnant anyhow. So if you aren't gonna have meetings, etc., I think you probably ought to ask the select board to disband you until there is a need again, and that need is when the governor's report comes out. I just don't see what can be accomplished in the interim other than a landing point for complaints.
All right, so I guess at this point then I'll just make a motion that we summarize what we've done, give our recommendation to the committee, has to be disbanded until a future date as Dick indicated, you know, in 2 years or whatever period of time, so that we disband once we write our final report.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Dick. Is there any discussion?
It's been discussed.
Okay, if not, let's vote. Heidi, can you call the roll then, please?
Roy,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Sheila,
Yes.
Dick,
Yes.
Heidi,
Yes.
yes. Okay. Okay, a couple of logistic things then so that's the assessment of what the next direction is for the committee. Let's talk about.
Are we going to have another meeting to get the final report and etc., or is this the final meeting?
Well, that's going to be my next question. We can have a meeting to review the final report. I think that would be worthwhile to make sure we're all in sync on it, because you know, working with Susan, I will work and draft most of this. 99% of it. Susan and I have discussed various things that have gone on in the committee, and she has helped me with a lot of the stuff that you see presented. So we work together very well as a team.
It may not be a final committee meeting if the board doesn't disband us. So
Right.
You're gonna
Yeah,
make
but it's not me.
Right. We could,
Oops, sorry.
right, you know, but So, right.
And I will.
Yeah.
I'm torn between one of two things. I could take 5-10 minutes and give you a draft outline of some things I've organized for what I think would be in our final report. You can take a look at that and say, yeah, that makes sense. And then we'll figure out some way to do a brief meeting to review the final report. We could probably do it all by Zoom, I would think.
That's not a bad idea, just
Yeah.
to do it by Zoom so that you can just have it up on the screen and we'll just scroll through, because really we're just, but sending it to everybody in advance would be great so that we're looking at it, can read it, make some comments, then have a final meeting via just Zoom. And do the roll call and vote will be done.
Right. Hang on a second. Why am I having?
Yeah, I know you're not a fan.
You're not a fan?
You can come over to my house and then.
Yeah, or if needs,
Or go to, I know, I don't like Teams at all.
I could meet with you here if we needed to. Hang on a second. I am having so much trouble finding the report that I want. In charge, here we go. Hang on, the problem is.
Would the final report include what you put in the first report?
Yeah, at the minimum, it would be appended to it. Okay, it may be a very brief summary and say details are here in this
Okay,
appendix.
yeah, that's
Right.
what I figured.
Absolutely.
But that's already been done,
Right.
so.
Right, and then we wouldn't say much, yeah, we would give a brief summary, very brief, like, very brief. And just say, here's the detail over here, okay?
And I like a couple of those slides that you just did in PowerPoint where showing that, hey, we're not that, we're in the middle of the pack,
Yeah, those are important.
And I think
Right.
that educates people just when they're reading the report, but I wouldn't put all those slides, I would just do the two that you had. Yeah, okay. Just saying.
I'd also like to know, Roy and Susan, if anyone knows how many seniors took advantage of the circuit breaker and if it were effective, et cetera.
I will try to follow up with that, with,
I don't think there's any way to know that. There's no way to know it, because that's up
We
to
can ask.
well, she didn't have people coming to her. They were redirecting everybody to the tax
The AARP.
service at Clinton, so Kelly's
Well,
not gonna.
I guess I'm just looking for some statement as to why it was a good thing. That several people inquired or several people took advantage of, or
right, whatever
Just
specific we can get.
Well, they're given
Well,
the
the people actually
opportunity.
go to the senior center and just ask them, like, this is an informal poll, did you get your finish of this, yes or no? I've done that kind of stuff, like, out of events.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just for your, right, exactly, for your own
For my-
information, but
Just, it's not scientific, but it's,
Somewhat indicative,
yes.
right? And Kelly had some numbers at one point in time, they were relatively low in terms of people who would ask questions about this or followed up on that. And it was like on the order of 20 total did. Okay. I will ask her again, if I can get that data, I will include it, all right?
But if 20 people were able to take advantage of it and got the
Still,
full
yeah.
3 years worth of, or whatever.
no, I think
it was.
she's told 20 people.
No, but I'm just saying, like, if you
19
could say, like, potentially,
Right.
that you have offered them $400,000 or whatever,
Yeah.
like,
Yes.
it'd be nice to be
Yes.
like, it did make it there.
Yes.
Right, whatever we conclude there. Okay, so here's, kind of the quick summary of what I put together. We did work with, Council on Aging, HHS, et cetera, to get the word out about,
And they did a good job. They not only created the program,
Circuit breaker.
marketed it, they They put promotion on the lighted signs, you know, they did a good job. Kelly did a good job.
Mhm.
With what we asked her to do and creating the awareness.
We started a discussion, we did do an assessment of the tax deferral program and we concluded this is not beneficial to either the town or people, they're not scalable. The SME analysis is on hold.
Right.
Okay. This report, we would talk about tax deferral and similar approaches. If I can find that, it's just essentially the same matrix I showed you before with eligibility in there. Tax fairness discussion. You know, I heard and we were all in the same place.
Yeah.
Taxes are equitably determined. That means assessed value, taxes charged, not are taxes, quote, fair as a percentage of income. There is a whole other thinking about progressive versus regressive taxes. Property taxes are regressive in that they're not based on your ability to pay, i.e. your total income. They're based on you own this asset. And therefore you pay a tax on that, not your ability to pay that. Relative to the charter, I would put in some things here in terms of things we were asked to do and what we did do underneath the various sections, okay? And then the final report would be, the senior means tested exemption is to be reviewed maybe by the assessor's office, maybe by FinCom, et cetera, when the governor's proposal is addressed by the legislature. The best data we had will be about 2 years.
Right.
Doing anything before that, we think is problematic. It's a waste of time and effort.
And so I think that we just disband, our recommendation would be to disband and elect new officers, like you said, at that time. Yeah.
Okay.
If that's how they decide to do it, maybe the business tax. On
Yeah.
the other tax fairness, they'll be like, let's just figure out.
Sure,
Right.
because
Testing.
in general, you know, the whole assessment process and these kinds of things are done by the assessor's office.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need another special committee to do these kinds of things. And I put down here, we may need one meeting to review the select board presentation to make sure we're all in sync. And we didn't say something that people say, oh, no, wait a minute, we didn't discuss that, or I don't agree with that.
Perfect.
And you know, TFC can delegate the responsibility to me and Susan to pull that together and then send it out as a draft.
Sounds
Okay.
great. Yeah.
Sounds great.
And then we'll just figure out, once you have a chance to look at the numbers, send it out to us, you know, we'll make our comments, I think. And then once everybody, you know, give a couple days to read it, make some comments back, including Deb, then we'll set a time
Right.
for the last meeting. Sounds good.
Okay, okay. Any other comments then? Anything else that we need to cover?
Nope.
If not, can we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second? 2 seconds. Any discussion?
I have something for discussion.
Beg your pardon?
He has
I have
something
something for discussion on this,
Oh,
on adjournment. Before we would adjourn, I would just like to thank every person on this committee. What an outstanding job you did. And I'd also like to make it official that as of this meeting, I am resigning.
Yeah.
We'll send a letter so that that's on the record, so that they'll clear the way for Roy to be appointed.
Perfect, thank you.
yes, and thank you, Dick, for all your contributions and
Yes.
your insight and help. Okay,
Really helped a lot, actually, so.
right, you made very big contributions to us and you have very large shoes to fill. I would be, you know, I will keep in mind that I am filling your shoes. Okay.
Could be shaking in the shoes.
Any other discussion? If not, let's do a roll call on the adjournment motion.
Right?
Yes,
Susan?
Yep.
Sheila?
Yes.
Dick?
Dick, do you agree to adjourn? Dick?
Did
Dick, are you?
I fall apart again? But my answer is yes.
Okay,
And I will also.
okay, so 5-0 to adjourn. Thank you again very much, folks.